The Entrepreneur's Library, episode 165.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Library, the only book-centric podcast that reviews all the top-selling business books and shares authors' perspective firsthand. This is your resource to finding the next great book that will enable you to grow personally and professionally. Welcome your host, Wade Danielson.
Welcome back to the EL. Today we have David Bryant Mitchell, author of Building Your Booming Business, the 5 foundations every organization needs to succeed. Welcome, David, and thank you for joining us on the Entrepreneur's Library.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Wade.
Absolutely. Before we take a deep dive into your book, will you take just a moment to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you personally.
Absolutely. So, again, my name is David Mitchell. The actual authorship of the book is David Bryant Mitchell. I don't want to get confused with the author of Cloud Atlas, right? I mean, that would be confusing. But anyway, so I'm a business coach and consultant and professional keynote speaker. So I take, just an entrepreneurial and business view to business leaders and business owners and entrepreneurs to help them build their business and make it something that become more of a legacy than just a scrap to feed the family, right? So, and that's pretty much who I am and what I do.
Excellent. So thank you for sharing that first off. And now let's jump right into your book, Building Your Booming Business, the 5 foundations every organization needs to succeed, which was actually just made available for purchase not that long ago, January 7th, 2015. And Dave, we're going to move quickly, but our whole goal here today is to cover the top questions that our listener/future reader would like to get answered. And the first one is, what was the inspiration behind writing Building Your Booming Business?
I found as I was working with business owners and entrepreneurs and leaders that I was saying the same thing over and over and over again, right? So I was taking the same concepts, the same principles that I teach to my clients, and I kept repeating myself. And I said, you know what? And I kept searching for resources, and I was constantly referring them to some great business books, but there was about 50 of them that I was just kind of saying, you know what, you should pick up this, and there's a really great section in there. So I felt like it was just kind of this scattered approach, and nobody really has, especially when you're a busy entrepreneur, they don't have the time to go and, number one, find the book and then, find the section that they need or whatever. And so I needed to get all of that information kind of into one volume. And it's a way for me to, number one, reach folks that perhaps aren't ready for my consulting services or my coaching services. But it's also a way that I can use that as a resource with my own clients to say, okay, well, if you take a look at my book, right, now I'm not having to spend a lot of my coaching time teaching when it's something that I can refer to and we can actually get down to work during my services. So that's why I wrote the book.
And what would you say makes your book different from others regarding the same or similar topic?
Well, I take an approach. Well, first off, I write in a conversational tone. So I use a lot of examples, both from my own life, from some of my clients' lives, white papers and different things that I've read or picked up on, items in the news. I've even got a quote, a quote from the Steve Jobs, the new Steve Jobs biography that came out recently. That I just gather this information, I put it into one place where really a business owner can pick it up and have the basic nuts and bolts they need to create a business that's going to develop and have this abundance, be successful. So I think that's one of the differences. A lot of the business books that I find out there are very niche oriented. So there's a book about marketing, or there's a book about social media, or there's a book about leadership. But there aren't very many books out there that are trying to tie it all together for these business owners and these entrepreneurs that are juggling all of those things. And that's what I wanted to put together.
How do you suggest the reader engage with your book? Is this one they can jump in and jump out as needed, pulling information? Or did you really write it to be read from front to back?
Yes. I tried to create a progression that if somebody were to sit down and start at page 1, they could read it all the way through and get the material. So it's comfortable to read that way. But I also structured it in a way that you can, if you're struggling with leadership, you can jump into the leadership section and really dig into the leadership, right? If you're struggling with some of the finances in your business, you can jump right into the leadership section of the book and get some real meat and some implementable ideas for your business just right away. So in fact, I've got several, since I've released it, I've gotten some really great reviews of people that are just reading it straight through because of the conversational tone that I take with it. So.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, very good. Well, David, we're to my favorite part of the entire interview. And this is where I want to hand over the mic to you for the next 5 minutes and really give you some time to give the future reader a great idea of what your book's all about. So will you help us take a deep dive into the content itself?
Sure. Absolutely. Let's do that. So the subtitle of the book is The 5 Foundations Every Organization Must Have to Succeed. And the reason why I do that is because everything that I do is built around 5 foundations. Those 5 foundations are marketing, leadership and management, operations, finance, and then systems and controls. And the last one, systems and controls, is a bit of a misnomer because really it's more functions as kind of the mortar between the other 4 foundations. Right, it's the one that ties them all together and integrates everything and pulls it all together. So the book is actually organized in that way. So I started the book specifically with marketing. The reason why I started with marketing is because nothing really happens until somebody sells something, right? Really, we don't have a business until we actually put it out on the market and somebody pays us for the value that we provide them. And so I work through the marketing and the concept. And I really work to avoid what we call spray and pray marketing, right? The hope marketing that we put it out there and hope somebody resonates. So I help them walk through everything from defining their product well, understanding who their target market is, pricing it appropriately, and then also creating marketing strategies that actually encourages action. All too often, if you look at your local newspaper or watch your TV, you see a lot of marketing that you, at the end of it, you're like, so what? Now what? Right? Creating marketing that encourages people to take action and do something and engage with you in a way that develops a relationship. And once you start developing that relationship, that's when the sales and the repeat sales and the word of mouth really happen. And so that's what I work with through the marketing. When I go into the leadership and management, I really dig deep into the leader versus the manager. They're very 2 different skills. A leader leads people, whereas a manager is somebody who manages things or processes or systems. But in order to move your organization, really you have to do both. And sometimes you do have to manage people. That's the accountability piece of management. But at the same time, you need to help inspire them. And so I talk about how do you do that and how do you develop leadership styles that are appropriate for the stage of team development. Where is your team in its development and how are they growing and how are they developing and how do you lead them and manage them and hold them accountable and all those bits and pieces towards the vision that you've set. So that's what I cover in the leadership. And then digging deeper, into the operations, it's how do you create, and I call operations, let me just rephrase. I call operations really the hidden marketing secret, right? It's when I have clients contact me for marketing help, they need more clients coming through the door. Really, they're 9 times out of 10, really the problem is they don't have any repeat customers. They have not created an operational system that brings people back to them over and over and over again. So it's working with them to develop those operations and create an operation that not only delivers a great experience, but also is able to deliver consistently. One of the examples that I give is a coffee shop that I did a bid on that I was working with. And the problem was that they had no set recipes. So the mocha or the latte that I went in for today was going to be very different than the one that I'm going to get tomorrow based on the barista that was behind the counter. So working with them on how to develop that. And those are just some examples of not just creating an experience, but creating consistency over time. In finance, it's pretty straightforward. I talk about how do you actually get more and how do you collect more consistently with your clients. It's a little bit about cash management, staying out of debt, that sort of information. And then finally, the systems and controls section really dives down deep into how do you get all of these different sections to talk to each other? How do you systemize it, and how do you get your team on board to understand the systems? Oftentimes, especially when you have somebody that's highly skilled, they don't like systems because they believe it takes away their creativity or their ability to function. But how do you get your team on board to be part of that systems development, to create that consistency with you? And so that's kind of the 5 foundations, but I threw in an extra foundation there at the end called your personal foundation. And it's things like building your integrity, and that talking about that people don't judge us on our intentions, they judge us on what we do. So how do we follow through our time management? And then rounding it all out with how do you prioritize between working 60 or 70 hours sometimes as an entrepreneur trying to get something off the ground, but then also giving back to the things that, number one, you want to enjoy, and the things that really matter, the people in your life that really matter in your life. So I talk a little bit about that towards the end of the book, and that pretty much sums up the book. Who knew there was so much, right?
Right. And Dave, that's why you said, who knew there was so much? We're going to ask you to break it down even a step further than you already did. You did a great job of giving us a summary. And now we're asking, if the reader could only take away one concept, principle, or action item out of your entire book, everything you just talked to us about, what would you want that to be?
That would be what's next thinking. Okay. So in everything that you do in your business, you need to be thinking, well, what is the next step? Okay. And what are the contingencies? So, I mean, even drilling down into, let's say, sales or marketing, right? You get somebody that engages with your business in a way and they show some interest. Well, what's next? What are the next 2 or 3 steps that you need to think about that's going to engage them, that's going to develop a relationship? And then if they decide to opt out, well, then what? Right? What's next? What's next to continue developing your operations? What's next with your team? What's next with your marketing, and planning that out so you already know before you step into this world what's next.
So, David, this next question is a little bit odd because I'm asking you for a favorite quote from your own book, but could you not only do that, but could you also explain what it means to you?
Sure. Well, I don't know that I have a quote per se, but I have an analogy that I love.
Okay.
And that's that as business owners, we are plate spinners. And as plate spinners, we can't start all of 20 of our plates that we're trying to get spinning at the same time. You look at the professional jugglers and the professional spinners, they don't start with 20 plates going. They start with one and they get it really going well, and then they add another. And the way that they're able to add more and more is by A, getting assistant, B, creating systems or items in the business that allow them to keep that plate spinning while they start the next one. And I think that's really the key is I want everybody to become a plate spinner. Mm. Don't get so wound up in trying to do everything all at once. Let's focus on the task at hand. Let's get the most important plate spinning so that we can manage it and develop it and then move on to the next one.
Excellent. So, Dave, we'll put that in the show notes for those that are out driving or running right now can go back and reflect on that a little bit further. So thank you for sharing that, or quote, but, / I guess, analogy in this case. So that was excellent. And David, my last question is, if there was only one book you could recommend based on the way it's impacted your life, created a paradigm or even a lifestyle shift for you, what book would you suggest?
Well, I think, and you've probably got this one with many of your other interviews, but the E-Myth is a big one that really kind of had an eye-opening moment for me to present the idea of creating and developing a franchise thinking or a systems thinking end of the business. I think that was a big one. Another one that I had that was interesting is a book called Leadership and Self-Deception. And it talks about how oftentimes we deceive ourselves, and that self-deception gets in the way of our leadership.
Excellent. I actually haven't heard of that second book. You're right. E-Myth and E-Myth Revisited have been mentioned a couple of different times. It's definitely a entrepreneurial author favorite as far as that goes. So that's fantastic. David, thank you for those recommendations. And before we depart, can you suggest the best way for our audience to be able to get more information on you and on your book, Building Your Booming Business?
Absolutely. So first off, they can actually go to the website, buildingyourboomingbusiness.com, and they can order a book directly from there. You can also get it on Amazon. Also, a great way to engage with me is to hit my coaching and consulting site, boommy.business.com. So it's BOOMMY business.com. And there you can get attached to some, I send out weekly business tips. They can get some free ebook downloads. But I think the best way for them to engage with me is to actually just give me a call. And I'm going to give you my cell number. If anybody is interested in booming their business and really taking it to a new level, I want them to call my cell directly. I am going to answer this. I don't have an assistant. And that phone number is 360-204-9247. And I love sitting down and talking with businesses, even if it's only for 15 or 30 minutes. Let's talk about what your next steps are and see if there's a possibility to help you boom your business. Also, I'm looking for speaking opportunities. So if you are part of a professional organization, if you are part of a professional association, and you need a speaker or a seminar conductor, I love getting in front of an audience and engaging with them in a new way, giving them some really impactful hints and tips, but also motivating and inspiring them to keep plugging in with their entrepreneurial dreams. And so again, for those that are trying to put that together, they can call me at 360-204-9247. Excellent.
Thank you for sharing that, David, because that's a huge opportunity for a lot of people that want some outside insight on their business. So that's I appreciate that very much. And David, thanks again for coming on and sharing your book with us.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. I love talking about business. I mean, I started business when I was 11, mowing lawns, first commercial contract at 13, and I've been engaged with it ever since. So, it's a passion, it's a love, it's an obsession, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks again for listening in today. If you'd like to win a copy of David's book, Building Your Booming Business, check out the elpodcast.com and become a VIP. And at the same site, you can also look at the show notes if you want more information on David or his book.
Looking for your next book idea? Head over to the elpodcast.com, where Wade shares his amazing resource, the top 10 business books recommended by over 500 entrepreneurs, with you for free. That's the elpodcast.com. Till the next time, keep it on the EL.